guys, it's Laura from How to Get Your Shit Together, and in this video I want to bust some minimalism myths. Because if you're like my husband, you will believe that being minimalist involves living in an empty house with bare walls and rooms. It is all doom and gloom, devoid of personality and modern conveniences and fun. My husband certainly could not be accused of being a minimalist. He also thinks that minimalism is impossible with kids. So lately I have been trying to explain to him what minimalist living is really all about so that he can stop freaking out every time I go on a KonMari bender. Because yes, you can be a minimalist with children and while still owning a lot of stuff. So what's the difference between a minimalist who has a lot of stuff, like me, and someone who just has a lot of stuff, like my husband? Let's go. These days, minimalism seems to be a dirty word. It is not cool to declutter or to live with less. In fact, there's a certain stigma attached to it. If you are not surrounding yourself with lots of material possessions and constantly splashing the cash, then you must be poor and very unhappy, because that is what advertising would have you believe. But that's only if you measure success in terms of money. Now, I ain't saying I don't want to be rich, but when it comes right down to it, the thing that I value most is having a life that is full of laughter and love and memories and happiness. Full of calm and contentedness. I want to cherish things, not be chained to them. I want my house to be a sanctuary, not just some large storage locker. And that is what the KonMari method is helping me to achieve. So what does minimalism really mean? Does it mean living in an almost empty house? Minimalist living means surrounding yourself only with stuff that you love. It's as simple as that. If you don't love empty rooms, don't live in them. You know, if you genuinely love your TV and your overflowing bookcase and your ever-expanding collection of China dolls or whatever it is, keep them. The minimalist bar will be set at different heights for different homes. I think it's the word itself that's confusing because it suggests having a minimal amount of stuff. But the minimal here refers to removing all of the extra, you know, all of the clutter, all of the unnecessary stuff, all of the stuff that you don't really love. You don't have to, you know, go off the grid and move to a tiny cabin in the woods, foraging for food and forgoing comfortable furniture. Unless you really want to, of course, you know, you do you. But just because one person lives out of a teeny tiny suitcase, that doesn't make them any more of a minimalist than somebody who lives in a full house. Minimalism is living with the minimum amount you need to be happy, not living with the minimum amount you need just to survive. And that amount will differ from person to person. So if you are somebody who absolutely loves books, then you are naturally going to want to surround yourself with more of them than somebody who just doesn't like reading. It might sound counterintuitive, but minimalism actually means creating a life of abundance. It's just in a more meaningful way. And yes, sometimes a minimalist will have a lot of physical possessions, but they add joy and happiness to their lives. You know, they add some value beyond the price tag. But you can still live a minimalist lifestyle while owning lots of stuff. There's also a misconception that being a minimalist means spending a lot less money or being stingy or a skinflint or whatever, but that is bullshit. It is true that minimalists often spend a lot less money than their peers, but they also make big investments in things that make them happy. You know, they splash out on experiences and quality and life's little luxuries. The way I see it, minimalists are curators of life. You know, they can see and appreciate everything that's out there, but they only choose the best for themselves. They don't add things to their lives just because it was on offer, or just because they need a bit of a pick-me-up, or because it was beside the checkout. Although I guess maybe sometimes they do, they are only human. Minimalists are people too. But for the most part, they spend their money wisely. They invest in their own happiness and their well-being, not just on the next quick fix. When I was younger, I splashed out a large amount of money on a beautiful winter coat, and my mother could not understand why I would spend so much money on one when I could get another one for like 10% of the price. But a decade later, I am still wearing and loving that coat, and in the long term, it's cost me much less than if I had bought several disposable coats down the years. Looking back, it was probably my first minimalist purchase, even if the price tag certainly was not minimal. But that's what minimalist living really is. It's about replacing 10 mediocre things with one thing that makes you the most happy. As for leading a minimalist lifestyle with children, it is not only entirely possible, but I believe it is preferable. Yes, children come with a lot of stuff. A lot. There are toys and trinkets and utensils and clothes, and if you're not careful, that stuff will take over your home in a heartbeat. And yes, some of it will be necessary, but a lot of it will not. Again, it's not about just getting rid of everything. It's about making more space for the things that make life with children easier. And honestly, personally, I will make as much space as possible for things that make life with a kid easier. It's also about making space for the things that your children truly love and just eliminating anything that would detract from that. I read a beautiful story recently that illustrates my point perfectly. Cannot remember where I saw it. If you know where it's from, please do link it in the comments below. But it was about a little boy and his favorite toy. So he had a little toy car that he loved and cherished and that he brought everywhere. And his grandmother, when she saw how much he loved it, she bought him a little multi-pack of tiny little cars so that he would have more of the things that he loved that he could play with. Except the reality was that in the end, he didn't play with any of them. And not only that, but he also stopped playing with the original car. And when he was asked why, he replied, "I can't love all of them." To me, that sums up minimalism perfectly. I think we often have a tendency to believe that if something makes us happy, then having even more of it will make us even happier. But in reality, all the excess does is distract us from what truly has our heart. Because if you think about it, how many times do you wear the same thing over and over again? You might have 20 pairs of jeans, but you still always reach for the one that you feel most comfortable in. All the others do is take up space. It's the same with kids. The kids play with the same toys over and over again. And sometimes we might think that they play with everything. I just certainly think that about my daughter. I'm like, oh, but she plays with everything she has. But in reality, all of that extra stuff is just more of a novelty to them. It's more of a, oh, look at all these things over here, rather than a conscious decision to choose the best. Because my daughter, she has I don't know how many stuffed toys, but she still goes to bed with the same 2 bunnies every single night. I think kids can get just as much of a thrill, if not more, from being outside and experiencing new things in nature and from library books than they can just from a room that's packed to the rafters. So at what point can you consider yourself a minimalist? Well, as I said before, the minimalist bar will be set at different levels for different lives. But to discover the minimum amount of things that you need to be happy, ask yourself how each thing or experience makes you feel. How does it contribute to your life? What value does it add to your life? Would getting rid of it really inconvenience you in a big way? Maybe you could replace it with something better, or could one thing do the job of several? Remember that an item's value is proportional to how happy it makes you, not to its price tag. So surround yourself with stuff that you truly love and then let the rest of it go, because if it's not contributing to your happiness, it's clutter. Minimalist living essentially just means being curator of your own life. Ignore the tag and decide what is truly priceless to you. So that's it for this video. I hope I have given you some food for thought. Thumbs up if you like the idea of the minimalist lifestyle. It's certainly something that I am aspiring to. And speaking of minimalism, I will be back next week with a KonMari progress report for you. I really feel like I am making huge inroads in my home. So subscribe to the channel if you haven't already and you can catch that. Until then, as usual, gur míle maith agaibh agus feici mé sibh se go luath. Slán!